Following Dracula's success in 1931, we have Frankenstein, directed by James Whale, and stars Colin Clive as Frankenstein and Boris Karloff in his iconic performance as the Frankenstein monster. The movie was based off Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. And much like the previously reviewed Dracula film, this film's story also deviates from the original source material, and is also based off a stage play by Peggy Webling. The origin of the story of Frankenstein came about in true campfire tale fashion, as it all began on a dark and stormy night, where Mary Wollstonecraft and her husband-to-be, Percy B. Shelley, were staying at their friend Lord Byron's house in Geneva, and Byron challenged the two writers to come up with a very scary ghost story. And that same night, after a nightmare, the story of Frankenstein came to Mary Shelley. Now, similar to the novel, this film revolves around a young scientist named Frankenstein, who reanimates a corpse that he fashioned himself from pieces of other bodies. And as a result of his actions, the creature is on the loose and begins to go on a murderous rampage. Unlike the novel, where the title character is named Victor Frankenstein, in this movie, his name is Henry Frankenstein. Why they make these kinds of changes, I honestly have no idea. My only guess is that they are just wanting to separate their portrayal of the character from the source material, and honestly, I can understand that in this case, because while he was overly ambitious and passionate about his work in the novel, Victor Frankenstein wasn't as much as a mad scientist as his film counterpart, Henry Frankenstein. Now, spoiler alert, Victor Frankenstein dies in the original novel pursuing the creature, and in the movie he lives and marries the love of his life, Elizabeth, who's killed by the creature in the book. Henry and Elizabeth have two sons, Ludwig Frankenstein and Wolf von Frankenstein, who both become intelligent scientists themselves. I kind of wonder if their names are meant to be inspired by the genius composers Ludwig von Beethoven and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Now, is that really relevant? Nah, not really. But as someone who has studied music composition in college, it makes me wonder. And if anybody knows the exact answer for sure, then be sure to let me know down in the comments. Now, in its day, Frankenstein received a notable amount of controversy. But the studio came prepared with a warning at the beginning of the movie from Edward Van Sloan. It was even banned in some theaters here in the States. There were some audiences that considered the movie to be blasphemous or sacrilegious because of Henry Frankenstein comparing himself to God after the creature comes to life. And some audiences even considered the scene where the creature accidentally killed the little girl Maria by the lake too disturbing. And in some versions, that particular part was omitted from the film entirely. Even Boris Karloff wanted that scene to be changed. And on that note, Boris Karloff's portrayal of the monster is just amazing. And personally, it's my favorite version of the Frankenstein monster out of all the actors who have played the creature. Seeing him before and after his makeup is applied, he's almost unrecognizable. I'm wondering if that's why they didn't credit his name in the opening credits. And I thought his very first entrance in this movie was creepy, as he just slowly enters the room, and the look on his face is very haunting and gaunt, and his makeup is just top-notch, even by today's standards. Karloff's portrayal of the Frankenstein monster was so iconic that it would even go on to inspire Stan Lee's creation of the Incredible Hulk. I heard in an interview with Stan Lee that he wanted to create a character that was based off both Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Frankenstein's monster. And because of this movie, we now have the Incredible Hulk. Like Bela Lugosi's take on Dracula, Karloff's performance of the Frankenstein monster would later shape the way the monster would be portrayed in both appearance and in behavior. The film's adaptation differs from the book in other ways as well, not just in the story, but in the characterization. In the novel, the creature is mostly just misunderstood and faces man's hatred due to his appearance, despite his good intentions, while all he wants is just acceptance and companionship. It's man's hatred that ultimately drives him to seek revenge against his creator. They do, however, explore the concept a little in the sequel, The Bride of Frankenstein. In this version, the monster is depicted as having an almost childlike innocence, implying that his monstrous nature is because he was implanted with an abnormal or criminal brain. But he really doesn't do anything bad or lash out in any way until he experiences the cruelty from Henry Frankenstein's assistant, Fritz, played by Dwight Frye, who also played Renfield in Dracula. You see, I told you he would be in more of these movies. Another fun fact, Boris Karloff not only played the monster a few times, but he would eventually in his later years go on to play the scientist Baron von Frankenstein in the Rankin-Bass animated film Mad Monster Party. And speaking of the scientists, Colin Clive's performance as Henry Frankenstein was great and iconic in its own right. Now, was it a little over the top? I mean, yeah, sure. They were going with more of a mad scientist who's obsessed with scientific power kind of feel. But Clive's over-the-top performance added a little bit of charm to the movie and suited the overall vibe. Now, after he created the monster in the novel, Victor Frankenstein was just disgusted with his creation that he shunned it, which added to the creature's animosity. And in the movie, he's not disgusted with it at first. He more or less just gets frustrated with the monster's unstable behavior. It's only after the monster lashes out and kills his assistant Fritz that he dissociates from the creature entirely. Also, like Dracula, there is no score in this movie, except for the opening and closing credits and throughout the middle of the movie where they're at that festival. And again, I don't mind that because it adds a new level of suspense and eeriness to the film. I also want to give props to the scenery and the production design. Whether it be at the graveyard at the beginning of the film, the castle where the creature comes to life, or the windmill at the end, it gave off a very gothic vibe, and I love it. There are a couple of plot holes in the film, though, that I didn't really notice before. First off, the father of the girl who was accidentally killed by the creature, he brings her into town during a festival saying she was murdered. But how did he know that? He left her alone before the monster even arrived, and he didn't see the monster throw the girl into the lake. And there was really nothing else implying that he witnessed it. Did he just find her afterwards and just assume that someone killed her? Also, when the creature breaks into Elizabeth's room at Frankenstein's house before their wedding and attacks her, my only question for that is, how did he know where to find her? Or even Henry Frankenstein, for that matter. Did he just peek into every house in the village until he found them? Or was this just a random attack? And I know I sound like I'm dogging on this movie, but in all honesty, I really do love this movie. I would even go as far as saying that I find it creepier than Dracula. I do, however, think that the story lacks something, being that it separates itself from the original novel. The novel addresses the concept of who is the actual monster, Frankenstein or the creature, as well as touching on some topics like the dangers of meddling with scientific means out of your control and how man's hatred could, for all intents and purposes, create a monster of its own. While it's still pretty good in comparison to the novel, the movie feels like a very abridged mad scientist rendition of the tale. But just like Dracula, Frankenstein is a testament to horror movies everywhere, especially for its time. Boris Karloff's performance is iconic, the makeup is great, and the effects are very well done. And even by today's standards, I still find it to be pretty creepy and suspenseful. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, I definitely recommend it, especially as we get closer to the Halloween season. But if you guys have seen this movie, let me know down in the comments below. What did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Either way, post those thoughts down in the comments below and I'll be sure to check those out. And also, while you're at it, let me know, who's your favorite actor to play the Frankenstein monster? I'll even add to that, who's your favorite actor to play the scientist Frankenstein? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And be sure to stay tuned for my next review for the Universal Monster film series, The Mummy. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one.